Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, the Ethics Commission stretches the law. Also, the V-Team takes a look at the failed special session. And Speaker Mike Hubbard wants his day in court. Yeah, kind of like a cat wants a bath.
Kitty.
All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics, with your host, Bill Brett, and the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hello. Morning.
Thank God the special session is over.
Oi.
It died a slow and painful death. Susan, you were there. The postmortem is not pretty.
Listen, when the budget got to the House and they voted it down only to come bring it up the next morning to kill it again, I mean, really, there's frustration, there's tensions. You got legislators running down the hall after each other, poking each other. And this has been a disaster. I mean, just an utter disaster.
Baron, doesn't this go back to the ill-advised calling the session before they were ready?
Yeah, it's two people's fault. Yes, the governor shares some share of the burden because he did call the special session in advance of the agreement that he had with legislators that it would be in mid-August. But at the same time, we've had 3 years now where these legislators were aware as early as 2012 that this day was coming. They borrowed $437 million from the Alabama Trust Fund back in 2012 to make ends meet so that they could get through an election. They had all the opportunity from the time they were elected in November until the session started in March. There were 4 months. They could have been having budget meetings, agreements, whatever it is they needed to come to. It's a total unadulterated failure of the governor's office and the legislature. They both share equal responsibility and blame in this.
Jack, these are Republicans that can pass anything they want to, we think. But they can't find, I had one of the senators say, we can get 11 votes in the Senate, but we can't get 15 or 18 or 21 for anything.
There doesn't seem to be any consensus for any one thing. And as Baron has said before on our radio show, they've had plenty of time since they were elected in 11 and then again in 14. They knew this was coming. Granted, Bentley kind of hoodwinked them by making them think the session was going to start later than it did. And that's one of their excuses, but they could have gotten it done if they'd gotten their ducks in a row well before the session started.
But these guys are not even, they're barely speaking to one another, much less to the governor. I mean, they'll go talk, but everybody seems to be, their heels are dug in. This is beginning to look like hubris to me, but I don't know. What are you guys seeing?
Well, I see, the 3 points of the triangle. You've got the Senate here, you've got the governor there, and you've got the House here. And nobody's really wanting to cooperate or work with the other two. And that's just not a workable situation. They're going to have to do something.
I mean, this whole debate that we've had, it's been several months now. Bentley came out and said he wanted to raise about $500 million in taxes. Some of them made some sense. Some of them were absolutely bizarre. Then when we get here, we got the House now wanted to raise taxes, and the Senate said no taxes. These are Republicans, Jack. I thought we were against taxes.
We're supposed to be. Everywhere you look, on every Republican platform in any state in the country, they're anti-tax. I kind of blame Bentley for all of this, for a lot of it, by saying we needed to raise $500 million, but gambling was off the table. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, and we'd actually bought into some of these taxes. Then out of the blue, a gaming bill comes up. And then that looks real attractive at first because it avoids taxes. And then you find out, well, some of the people in our party have dug their heels in, and they're not for not for gambling, but they're not for taxes. Where else do you go?
Barron, was it you that told me you went to a Tea Party meeting where Tea Party people actually stood up and said they preferred taxes?
Oh, yeah, this was one of the largest and most well-known Tea Party groups in the state right here in the Montgomery area. And afterward, there was a presentation on gambling. It was Brian Taylor was speaking about Indian gaming and the history of it. And afterwards, the issue of how do we resolve the budget crisis came up. And we'd covered it on the radio show, and several of the people there listened to the show and came up. And they all said, well, why don't we raise this tax? Why don't we raise this tax? And it was a bizarre, surreal moment. This was the Tea Party, which was founded on we're taxed enough already.
Yeah.
And their leaders, not just backbenchers. I mean, these are some of the leaders of the Tea Party movement were coming up saying, well, this is the tax I support. This is the tax I support. It's as if the Tea Party has become the anti-gaming party and is now okay with taxes as long as there's no gaming.
Well, and that is a parallel universe. I mean, we've got Governor Bentley even this week was quoting that bogus poll that they had, where how many of them was it that wanted to raise taxes?
He's saying it's 3-1.
3-1.
Prefer raising taxes to cutting services. But when you consider how these questions are asked, I mean, it's like they would call and say, do you favor a small, minuscule, unnoticeable bump in revenue only shouldered by people who can afford it? Or do you want to close down the prisons and kick people out of nursing homes? And the surprising thing is that a quarter of the people still said, yeah, shut it down.
Shut it down. Yeah, that's the amazing thing.
Start running out on the street.
Yeah, I mean, these are some hardcore.
Yeah.
Now, these are real Republicans.
That's what we refer to as the base.
I mean, they want no new taxes. You know, I tell you, I was done with the tax package when they took out that premium insurance tax that would have raised $20 million. Bentley said. I had other people say that's more like $60 million. But you know what I was told? They would not. The governor's office would not go to war with Alpha over $20 or $40 million. Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's where we are. Everybody has their interest group. Everybody wants to protect this group. This group. You mentioned the three-headed monster: the Senate, the House, and the governor's office. Even within the House and the Senate, you have your own three-headed monsters. Mm-hmm. You have Democrats who are not going with any taxes without Medicaid expansion and a gambling vote. That's one head, and then you have the moralists that don't want any gaming under any circumstance. Then you have the no tax people, the original Tea Party people, not this new intimation, but the original Tea Party group that's no taxes under any circumstance.
Well, my position has become bring in the pain, pass the austerity budget. Let's see how bad it gets. I mean, we hear that from a lot of people, don't we, Susan?
We do. There's another faction in there with the people who don't want taxes that say just cut it. Yeah. Just cut it. And, you know, if you really want to be serious about this, if you really want to see where the pain's going to get out about September 1, start putting out signs that this state park will close starting October 1. Start sending out pink slips. If we don't have a fix, you're not going to have a job come October 1. And see how people will react then.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't, until they see some pain, they're not buying it. This is like Chicken Little running around.
One of the problems is the states around us have all had economies that have grown. We have not.
Yeah.
That is one of the most pitiful things that the Republicans who fought all these years to be in control finally got in control, and they blew it.
Last in education, last in job growth, fourth in public corruption. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, it almost could be described as a hostage situation. The whole session was, but particularly Mike Hubbard held up Senate bill after Senate bill because he was not getting his way.
Yes, he did. And we found out on the last day why. Apparently, and this is according to multiple sources, he sent word from the House floor up to the Senate that there would be no more bills passed that the Senate sent down until they passed HB 27, which is the Star Chamber bill, what we call the Star Chamber, where it gives the legislature a committee. They can go in, they can fund agencies, they can defund agencies, they can shut them down, they can shift them around, gives them complete control over every agency, including the Attorney General's office.
And Hubbard would be the guy making the appointments. He would be on the committee. I mean, this is just like Nazi Germany as far as I'm concerned.
It's pretty bad, to be honest with you. This bill would give them the power to withhold money from agencies, move money. Not only that, limit the governor's power for intergovernmental agreements. I mean, there's no shortage of the power that this take. I wonder about its constitutionality. I wonder if the Alabama Supreme Court took a look at this bill, would they think this violated the separation of powers? I mean, that's number one. Number two is to hold everything up, to hold the entire state hostage, Medicaid money, teacher salaries, state employee salaries, state park funding, court system funding, to hold all this up because you have a bone to pick with Luther Strange and Matt Hart, and you want to go in there and shake up their agency's budget? Come on.
Well, I mean, we were told by high-ranking leadership in the State House that he was doing this because he wanted to defund some DAs and he wanted to defund parts of the Attorney General's office. I mean, Jack, you heard a lot of stuff too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. The main thing is that you worry about if you don't have a budget, what happens? You know, let's say October gets here and we don't have a budget. You know, Bentley seems to be dragging his feet about when he's going to announce the next session. If they run out of time, we don't have a budget. There's no budget to prorate. So does the state shut down? And if so, who shuts down with the state? All the agencies. What's the agency Mike hates the most? Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
To hold this whole state hostage because of one person is another argument he needs to go.
It's more and more looking like a two-pronged Mike approach here. Either hold up the general fund budget, let the government shut down so it postpones his court thing, or get the Star Chamber so he can defund the Attorney General's office.
These are not conspiracy theories. These are serious men and women that we know as credible sources have told us this. Barron, you've heard it?
This is not wild speculation.
No.
These are senators, representatives, high-ranking people in government that are coming forward and saying, get this story out.
Yeah.
Don't use my name, but get this story out. This is taking place. Mike Hubbard is the reason we don't have a budget. For some reason, I don't want to say that, actually. I was about to say way too much. But there are people that are coming forward and saying he still has some true believers there.
Yeah.
That he still has some true believers in the House, and that's going to prevent him from being removed from the Speaker's chair. But something has to be done to get around him somehow.
Right.
There was so much that was so true when they voted on the budget. From our understanding, there were green lights on the board until Mike Hubbard voted no, and then everything went red to the point it was 92-2.
92-2. No one's ever seen a budget fiasco like that. And here's this sawed-off little dictator sitting down there plotting to get out of jail. I mean, to get out of a court case.
Yeah,
I've just never seen anything like it.
The word came over. I heard that a prominent senator made the comment, well, Mike still got him herded over there. He's not going to pass any budget that funds the AG's office. And we all know now the Star Chamber bill is the backstop in case that goes awry.
Yeah.
Then the people he controls do whatever he says do.
It's just one of the most bizarre things I've ever witnessed in state government. Something else that really came up this week is this. The Ethics Commission passed an opinion that said that it was okay for Representative Patricia Todd to represent her employer before the House of Representatives to pass legislation, to promote legislation, to lobby for legislation, while she's sitting there getting paid by her employer. I mean, I love Patricia Todd as a human being, but Barron, this is outrageous.
It's two things. One is it sets a terrible precedent. The second thing is, you're right, everybody likes Patricia Todd. She's extraordinarily friendly. She's unfailingly nice. This isn't about Patricia Todd. This is about the Ethics Commission allowing legislators to be hired by lobbyist groups and then carry legislation, vote on legislation, lobby other members of the House and Senate on issue-based legislation. To me, you might as well just attach a fee schedule above everybody's nameplate on their door, on their office door. For $200,000, I will be your lobbyist inside the legislature. That's what this is. She is a lobbyist and a legislator, a lobbyist for issue-based organizations. And then they justified it by saying, well, there's no personal gain. Yes, there is. She's being paid as a lobbyist. That's personal gain.
And the thing is, the organization Human Rights Campaign is a group that has done, if you are into equal rights as far as gay, lesbian, transgendered folks, I mean, they are a nonprofit. Patricia's been an advocate for that community for a long, long time. She's our only lesbian legislator that is out, or lawmaker that's out. But the point is, not that they're not doing good work, but really should anybody, whether it's a nonprofit or not, be advocating that position while holding office, Jack?
Well, we want to believe Tom Albritton, the new ethics chief, is an up-and-up guy, but to write a letter back to her through his board or whatever, saying this is okay, I mean, what in the world are those people thinking that they would allow a person on a group's payroll as a lawmaker to also be their lobbyist? That is incredible. The people of Alabama ought to be outraged. Whether or not you like Patricia Todd, we all do. She's, like you said, gregarious and great. This just stinks. It doesn't just smell, it reeks.
You know who's going to love this is Mike Hubbard and his attorney, because they're going to say, how is this different than what Mike did?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, Mike was representing the Alabama Pharmaceutical Co-op, Inc., an issue-based organization. He was lobbying on their behalf, not as a registered lobbyist, because he didn't have to register under this ethics. I think this ethics opinion opens a gate a mile wide for Mike Hubbard and his legal team to drive their entire legal defense through to the Lee County grand jury and the Lee County jury.
I hope that's not true. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Mike Hubbard, through his attorney, J. Mark White, is asking the Lee County trial judge, Jacob Walker III, for more time. He's scheduled to go to trial on October 19th. And Jack, they don't want to go there, it looks like to me. What do you think?
I think they're doing everything they can to stay out of court. Mark White, and the cameras are on, so we want our day in court and that big pep rally there. We want to get this behind us. They don't want to go. They don't want to go to trial any more than the Wicked the Witch of the West wants hot water poured on them. I mean, they just don't. And it's because they know what's ahead. They've got more evidence in front of them than we'll ever see. But I'm telling you, this is just what is it? Justice delayed is justice denied.
I mean, Susan, this is the state has an interest in knowing whether this man is guilty or innocent. This is not a normal trial.
It is not. And I want to add here that, we're talking about, they've had 189 days since the date was set. They've had 360 plus since he was arrested.
By the time they get to trial.
By the time they get to trial, by the time we get to this court date, as we mentioned earlier in the show, right now we're looking at, he's holding up a budget for the state. We're talking about losing thousands of jobs and closing things and cutting, and he's not willing to move on anything. We're talking about the Star Chamber bill. If we had a leader in there that didn't have a personal stake in this, I think those two issues would be viewed in a totally different way.
Barron, the Attorney General's office finally hit back on some of these things and really kind of got this thing down to where people could really understand what's going on. You made a very good case of this on your radio show this week.
Well, for the first time, they said what's needed to have been said this entire time. Mike Hubbard is the Speaker of the House and a current representative from House District 79. The people of the state of Alabama deserve to know if a man holding those two positions is a crook. And there's only one place where we'll find the answer out. We can all have our opinions, we express them. There's only one place where we will finally learn the truth. Is Mike Hubbard a crook? And that's the Lee County courtroom. When Jacob Walker swears in a jury, they'll be the ones who decide whether Mike Hubbard is guilty or innocent. In the meantime, we can all just speculate. And that speculation is not healthy when the man who you're speculating about is the Speaker of the House and a current state representative. It's not a good system, especially, he's not charged with murder. He's not charged with kidnapping. He's charged with using his office for personal gain to the detriment of the state of Alabama. An office he still holds. An office we deserve to know whether he's guilty or innocent while he's holding it.
And that's why other states, they make these jokers step down, don't they, Jack?
They do. And some of them have the wherewithal to go ahead and step down because they respect the process and the system enough to know that their staying there is going to be an impediment to getting things done. And, we're not talking about a guy that's a CEO of a janitorial supply company who's indicted. This is the guy, probably one of the three top most powerful people in the state who oversees billions of dollars, and he's still there.
I mean, the crazy thing to me, and I'm not an attorney, but one of the things you want to have a trial so that it addresses the injured parties, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's ideally. The state of Alabama's been injured. That's the allegation the Attorney General's made. And we want to know whether, in fact, that's true and to begin the healing process and hold them accountable. The other thing is, time is almost always on the side of the criminal defendant.
Right.
This was something when I've represented criminals, we used to our advantage. You delay as much as possible. People change their mind. People get over hurt feelings. People aren't as mad as they used to be. People die, get sick, decide they don't want to show up. Memories get gray and fuzzy. There are reasons you want to, as a criminal defense lawyer, delay this. Mike Hubbard will have delayed it for 1 full year by the time they go to trial. If they go to trial on October 19th as scheduled, he wants to push it out further because it benefits him.
Right. And he gets to stay in power and raise money.
And whether he goes to trial in October or not, he's still going to sit another special session discussing our budget, discussing what goes on in the state. He can turn around and hold the state hostage again.
Well, to me, and I've said it till I'm blue in the face, if they had any guts in the House, they would go to him and say, Speaker Hubbard, we love you, we believe in you, but for the good of the state and the good of the Republican Party, you need to step aside until your trial is set. But there is not a single person in that House that's willing to walk down there and make that call.
You're exactly right, which makes you wonder, how many of them are in on the money-making scheme? Makes you wonder. A lot of them, and we've said it ad nauseum on this show, what are they scared of? I mean, Mike does. I mean, they are terrified of Mike. They know he's vindictive. They know he's mean. But so what if you lose a committee assignment? I'd kind of like that.
I mean, to me, it's a badge of honor that he doesn't like us. You know what I mean?
Not that they don't already go play golf, but we'll give you another afternoon to play golf.
And I'm not saying, when you say how many of them are in on the money game, it's not that that I suspect anyway, you can speak for yourself, it's not that I suspect they're actually getting paid or on the take, but raising money for re-election is easy when you've supported the speaker, when you've not bucked the system, you've got your cush committee assignment, you don't know who's going to replace him as speaker, he's going to put his buddies in, it may not be your friend. Things change. And right now, status quo is good for the Republicans, despite the fact that they're unable to reach a accord on a budget and everything else. That's the least of their concerns. They'd rather be invited to the cocktail parties, get all the special perks and treatments that come with being in office, and that's what they're scared of losing. That's what they're scared of losing.
Well, I tell you, I would not be able to face myself in the morning while I was shaving if I didn't stand up to a joker like Mike Hubbard. That's just me. You know, another thing that he's trying to do, Susan, they filed another motion saying that they got all these documents. They requested all these documents be given in electronic format. The state gave them to them in electronic format. They didn't like that format. They gave them to them in another format. And now they want them how?
Hard copies.
Hard copies.
As though maybe magically when the AG's office opens a PDF, it's different than the one that they opened.
Right.
We're talking about 13 bankers' boxes worth of stuff. We're talking about some of these are audiovisual files. How do you print an audiovisual file? I'm sorry. You know, video files, anything like that. It's just impossible. I mean, some of these, I think there's 26,000 of them. Now, somewhere around 18,000 of these came from IMG, from Hubbard's employer. How is the AG going to change that document?
It's just another delay tactic, isn't it, Barron?
It's a delay tactic. I mean, it's a verifiable discovery dispute the judge is going to have to settle, whether or not he's going to force them. But I think that if you read their motion, and they filed a very logical, easy to follow motion, even a non-lawyer could follow it. They filed a very easy to follow motion outlining why what they have already done is sufficient. And if you look at it, it makes perfect sense. They've gone above and beyond the Call of Duty what the Alabama Rules of Criminal Procedure require. They provided him in the format they have them. Mike can go hire his own professionals. Lord knows he has all the money apparently he needs in his criminal defense. Go hire your own electronic discovery professionals and let them crack into this stuff.
Well, I think it's just more waste of time, more frivolous motions, but we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch new stories every day on alreporter.com. Like us on Facebook, catch us on YouTube, and of course, check us out every Sunday. Thank you for watching.